Great.
And we're now live on YouTube.
Now live
Okay.
on YouTube.
Great, thank you. So welcome council colleagues and guests and members of our community, of course, as well as staff to our council meeting number 47 here on Tuesday, November 23rd, being held virtually at 6:30 p.m. We appreciate that you've all joined us via Zoom for a deliberation and presentations on community budget requests. So I've called the meeting to order and I'd like to get a mover and a seconder for this special council meeting. And I'll look to Councillor Barkley and Deputy Mayor to move and second the agenda. Of course, on the agenda this evening, singularly is the presentations of community grant requests that have come in for this forthcoming year's budget. So with that in mind, I'll call the question, colleagues. Councillor Strachan does send her regrets. She's on the road from Halifax, but we have everyone else in the room. I'll call the question. All in favor, please. Thank you. Motion is carried. Other than that, there is nothing except for disclosures of interest. Council colleagues, any disclosures of interest this evening? Okay, seeing nothing, then I will, it gives me great pleasure, in fact, to welcome 9 delegations this evening. One on the agenda has withdrawn in advance of the meeting. So we have 9 presentations, and I understand that everyone's been advised they have 5 minutes to make their presentation. And of course, that gives council colleagues a chance to ask some questions, and that's really important to this process. So I think myself and our clerk will be keeping a bit of a timer. We'll give you, we'll certainly give you a cue at the 4 minute, 30 second-ish mark, and hopefully you can clue up if you're not on your way out. And then we'll reserve questions certainly from council before moving on to the next delegation. So our first delegation this evening is from Jane Couch, and it's in regards to art classes. Council colleagues and anyone watching will know that the budget request submissions were in fact submitted in advance. So they've been collated and they're featured on the North Grenville website under the governance tab. And before we go to Jane, in fact, I think we're going to welcome Mr. Brad Brookman, who's just going to say a few preliminary remarks. Go ahead, Mr. Brookman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can we just put up my presentation, Palak?
While we're waiting, I'd like to at least publicly acknowledge the outstanding work of all those who came together for the Santa Claus Parade this past weekend, a real success in the community, and so nice to see so many families and seniors out. It truly, I think, was North Grenville's best parade. So, you know, a real, I think, a manifestation of, you know, good community commitment, municipal partnership, and also just synergies within and among community organizations who came together to make it all happen. So congratulations to all those who were involved. I know it was certainly a treat for council to be in the parade and see all those smiling faces, and to see over, I think, 55, 57 floats was truly remarkable. So congratulations. And I think over to you, Brad.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So thanks to everybody for coming to do your presentations today. Very excited to have you come and present yourselves to the Mayor and the Council. Next slide. So just a quick overview of the program. We've set aside $140,000 in the draft budget. That was based on last year's applications. That represents just under 1% of our taxpayers' dollars. So the good news is that we got a lot of interest this year. We've improved the program. We did a lot of community engagement, make sure everybody knew that that opportunity was out there. We have some annual recipients: the Kemptville District Home Support Escorted Transportation Service, Canada Day 2022, Meet Me on Main Street 2022, and the Kemptville Kempville Creek ice clearing, which is hard to say, have been pre-authorized. So we'll not be doing presentations today. However, they are part of that $140,000 that we set aside in the draft budget. We have 20 applicants, 10 of which were to present today. We have 9 remaining. We have $313,120 of application for funding requested against the $88,600 that's currently in the draft budget. That means that we're going to have to make some decisions. Those decisions will not be made today. Today is an information session. So you'll be presenting to council, putting your best foot forward and explaining how you meet the criteria for the program. And that will be taken away and deliberated. Next slide, please. Just a reminder on the eligibility requirements. The purpose of today is to clearly demonstrate how the funding requested will contribute to the municipality of North Grenville's council work plan. So the 3 main points are to be described for you to describe what the grant request will be used for, how the activities supported by the grant will benefit the municipality of North Grenville, and then demonstrate how you intend to measure the success of your program. So those are key points when when council is deliberating how to distribute funds, that they will be analyzing both your submission that you did online and your presentation today. Next slide, please. So the award parameters, council may award all, none, or a portion of the amount requested. Recipients will be notified after the budget is passed in early 2022, so you will not hear anything until after the budget is passed. And for successful applicants or recipients, they'll be required to submit a grant funding reporting form by November 30th, 2022. Just a note that if you fail to fully complete and submit this report, it may require repayment of all or part of the amount awarded. Next slide, please. And these are the
I'm going
9.
to correct, Brad, sorry, just to get in there for a second.
Sure.
Of course, a provisional budget number for community grant requests has been proposed,
Yes.
but we have not accepted that number. So I think it is important to clarify that we could accept less grants, more grants, right? That's a fluid number at this point. So if we go back 2 slides, just to be clear, I think council, once we've heard the merits of all the presentations, will really be weighing, just if we go back 1 other slide, we'll be weighing the merits and the proposed investments in the community against, many other needs, from a variety of places, both internal and external, before deciding, I think, on the grant request per se. So I would suggest that maybe that 313 number with 313,120 is yes, what has been proposed from various groups in the community. Whether or not it's 88,000 in available funding, I think remains to be seen. So I just wanted to be clear about that. I understand it's your number based upon the precedent set last year, but I think, again, that'll be part of council's overall discussion when we look at the full budget.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
And I'll hand it back to you, Madam Mayor, to get our presentation started.
Awesome. Okay. So council colleagues, any questions for Brad before we start? Okay. So then I will welcome Jane Couch to come forward, and she's made a submission for art classes. And again, I remind everyone that all the submissions appear on North Grenville's website, so they're there for anyone to see. Welcome, Jane, and you've got 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, I'll introduce myself. My name's Jane Couch, and I'm a visual arts professional. Yeah, it's my official title. And what my submission was for drawing classes. So for free drawing classes, and the budget request was for $1,000. So $500 would be to pay for the materials for the kids taking the art lessons, and it is youth. So grade 10, age 10, which is grade 5 to the end of high school. That's the target audience for that. And the other $500 would be for a stipend for the instructors that commit to doing it. And the reason is I can work for free, but I can't ask or organize other people to work for free. And I'll throw the point out there that there's a particular reason why I think that the visual arts is very important for kids to learn, is because drawing in particular, that's my preference, versus other visual arts and crafts. So that's why it's important to recognize that these are structured drawing programs that I'm thinking of, that I'm working towards offering for the kids. And one of the advantages to taking a good art class is that kids learn some creative problem solving skills. And so the reason that I think that council should consider investing in this avenue of community engagement is first off, because you're nurturing creativity and imagination. Kids are also learning fine motor skills, and cognitive connections are made for thinking process. The other thing council will gain for this is they become patrons of the arts in North Grenville, because we would be hiring some professional artists to teach the kids, even if we're not paying them the going rate. We're not asking them to do it for free. Oh, and the final objective for this is that the goal is for the kids, and we'll break it down into age groups, to complete a mural to decorate the structure that the Kentville Farmers Market has, that they have musicians that play out of that. Now they're paying for the materials for that, but I would like to spend our focus for the drawing classes on working towards achieving that goal and installing that in the spring. So I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Jane. I see Councillor Barclay's hand up. I'm just looking for some others. I don't. So Councillor Barclay, why don't you go first? Thanks.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks for being first. It's a difficult position to be in, to be the first one to talk to your application. And it's just,
yes,
I'm
it is
to the rest.
Hard to be first.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes,
thanks.
but thank you for being first. And
Sorry, John, I can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, Councillor Barclay.
oh, sorry.
Okay.
I apologize. I hit the wrong button.
Go ahead.
So the comment I wanted to make is directed to the rest of the applicants today and tomorrow, is that any of the editorial comments that we make on the applications or questions that we make shouldn't be construed as, necessarily support for the application, or that it'll lead to some positive result at the end, because we have to take these requests in context of the entire budget in January. But I did want to ask you a question. When I first got to know you, Jane, you were talking about an arts hub and a permanent location to do training.
Yes.
For young people. And I know Herb Kluche has also
Yep.
talked about
Yep.
lending library.
There's a few of us. There's
So
a few of us
my-
that are trying to inspire you guys to help us get to that
So,
level.
so
Yes.
my question is, how do these free art classes play into what I see, and you can contradict me, as your ultimate goal of creating an arts hub in North Grenville?
Well, they give us the opportunity to nurture the desire to get into the visual arts, because you've got a whole generation that, if I'm not mistaken, 3 out of 4 of the schools here don't have art lessons anymore. And so we're developing a whole generation that is really excited about all the outdoor activities that they've got. They can swim, they can skate, they can do all kinds of things, but they don't have the opportunity to spend any time in the visual arts. And so when they become the adults in our community, they're not going to foster that in their kids either, because they didn't learn it. So I think it's very important that we start with the kids, and we need to get them interested. And one of the barriers is always payment. So if we can offer it to them for free, I've already tried it with the library. The library was very supportive, and we threw it out there to see if we could get anybody, and we had to add extra classes, and it was full. So we missed getting the teenagers when we went to the library though. So that's why I've already approached the youth group about staging some classes there and whether they would be interested or not, and they're already interested. So, so I'll take the art classes to people, and eventually someday maybe we can have a building where you can come and get art classes. One step at a time though, guys.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Emma. You can hear me, eh? Thanks, Jane. And again, thanks for going first. And I know it's tough. I was looking at your presentation that you submitted, or your information that you submitted, and there was a couple of things that I was wondering about. One is that you were asking for 1,000, and then you said the estimated cost was 2,000. So I wasn't sure where the other 1,000 was coming from. And you mentioned room rental at the library, and I just wondered, how often have you been doing these classes? Are they weekly? Are they monthly? How long are they? What are the material costs? And the number of participation, the number of participants, or the registration numbers that you've had. And you also did say that it was from ages 10 to 70, and now tonight you said youth. So I just want to clarify, is it across the board? Can anybody participate in this, or is it just youth?
Okay, hang on, Doreen, that's 3 questions and I'm not going to remember all 3 of them. So
Sorry,
it's okay.
Jane.
So I think the answer to the first one is that if we paid rental fees for a room to put over our heads, and if we actually paid the guest artists or the people that are working in the project, if we were to pay them going rate for their services and have to pay rent, then it would cost $2,000 to do this project. So we haven't had to do I didn't pay any rent at the library. It was generously given to me as a test project because she wanted to support the group. So in order for us to see who was interested, we just covered the gamut to see who was interested. And for the COVID protocol numbers, we maxed out and we had to turn people away. And it was only a test project to see if there was interest. What it showed me was that the teenage group that I wanted to make sure that I focused on, the teenage group didn't come to us at the library, which is why I went to the youth group to ask if they would be interested in supporting the project by allowing me to teach there once a week. We are just in that conversation at this point in time, so I don't want to put any expectations on that. But the market testing that we did just showed us where we could reach, the we is me, where I could reach out in order to get specific audiences and find out whether the interest was there. And it seems to me that the interest is there. And I would like to think the interest is there with the community support, which is the library is helping out. And I hope the youth group would help out. So that's the stage that we're at. Now I don't remember what the other 2 questions were.
The other question was how many participants? How many registrations
if I remember correctly, 10? It was the COVID protocols for the month of October. So whatever the maximum group COVID, thanks. Wow, that's tough. I'm not sure whether it was 10 or 8. I think it was 10, and we filled up for all 3. We started off with 2, then we added another one because so many people wanted to come to it, and then I wanted to bring it down before I could find out whether we could how the project will pan out in January. So I've talked to the North Grenville Arts Guild, and they're very interested in seeing how they can fit in with the project as instructors. And so if we were to get the grant, it would become more of a we. And so I would work with those organizations so that we could facilitate getting the drawing classes out to anybody who wants to participate in them. And one of the objectives would be to do a mural for the Kentville Farmers Market.
Okay, so Doreen and John, our councillor, I apologize, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Barkley, I'm going to have you and Deputy Mayor, Jane, please take good notes. I'll prompt you. We're going to bundle these questions because we have a remaining 9 presentations. So I will take notes of what the questions are, but I think it'll be more efficient for the questions to be asked all at once. So Councillor Sullivan, last question. What is it, please? You had a last question, or are you done now? Councillor Sullivan, do you have another question? You're on mute. We cannot hear you.
I'm sorry. I just had a phone call, so I told him to call me back in 2 hours. Okay.
Do you have a final question or no?
No, that's fine. Thanks, Jane. Okay.
No problem. So I'm going to take Deputy Mayor and Councillor Barkley. I'm going to have you bundle your questions, and then we'll go back to Jane one more time. Deputy Mayor, what's your question, please?
Hi, Jane. The question is, have you attempted any fundraising for this event that you're planning to do, or are you planning to?
Okay, good fundraising question, Jane. Number 1, Councillor Barkley, you're back up for round 2. What is it, please? Thanks.
Sorry, I'm done with my questions.
Your hand was still up. Okay, so there you go. So Jane, in terms of other partnerships, fundraising efforts, a possible modest registration fee, where are we at?
I would like to move a fundraising effort into stage 2 of the project. This is just in stage 1. So if it can keep if the momentum stays going by the spring and into the summer, then it would be nice to move it up a notch next September.
Okay, great.
Hopefully that answered your question. Thanks for your time, everybody. Bye.
Deputy Mayor, you're good? That works? I'll move on. Okay. Thank you very much, Jane. We appreciate it. I look forward to further discussion, I'm sure. So number 2, Ms. Sue Walker, welcome back. Beth Donovan Hospice. Certainly we're familiar with obviously the very good work of the hospice, and welcome Ms. Walker to talk about her requests. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having us this evening again. Next slide, please. So as you know, our mission is bringing hope and healing to the community through compassionate support and end-of-life care, and our vision is embracing life. Next slide, please. So our services are in-home visiting with our volunteer program, our day hospice, spiritual care. The reason that we're here before you this evening, bereavement counseling, so support for an extra day of our counseling salary, and caregiver support, equipment lending, and the PSW practicum that we do with the Upper Canada District Catholic School Board and train PSWs in palliative care. And of course, all of these services are offered to all residents of North Grenville for free. Next slide, please. So our bereavement services in particular, so we have general information about grief and loss. We have switched, obviously, during COVID to online, over the phone and in-person counseling for all family members and the client themselves. We also offer support groups for spousal loss, caregiver support, loss by suicide. This year we added a loss during COVID, which was very popular. And that was for anybody, not that lost somebody to COVID, but during COVID. Next slide, please. I'll draw your attention, just in the interest of time, to the middle quote about the loss during COVID group. It was a real lifeline for a lot of people. They felt so guilty about not being able to be at the hospital, not being able to have funerals the way they normally would, limited number of people. This gave them a chance to come together and really just talk about how they felt and hear that other people felt the same way. Next slide, please. So these are some of our stats for the last year in terms of the different services that we offer within the bereavement envelope. So caregiver support, 58 clients, individual counseling, 65 with 405 visits, Spousal loss was 6 clients, family counseling 3 couples. Clients that are currently on our wait list, we do have 3 that have been on the wait list for 4 months. And the loss during COVID group that was full with 7 clients, and we anticipate offering it again at least another few times just based on interest. Next slide, please. So some of the community benefits from the bereavement program, we know that mental health is a determinant of overall health. So if we can improve mental health, we're going to improve health in general. Helping to cope with that loss during COVID we've seen is huge. We've had a big increase in requests for our services because of that. The one-on-one counseling and the equal access, because our services are free, counseling can be quite expensive for folks, and those who can't afford it often don't try to seek it out just because it's not one of those things. If they have to choose between eating and counseling, they often say, you know, it's more important to put food on the table. So the fact that we can do it at no cost is amazing. And we hear from our volunteers that they absolutely love being able to help other community members right where they live. Next slide, please. So we currently have 8 volunteers trained in bereavement. We need to have an additional 12 to 15. And we have structured our bereavement program in such a way that when the client comes to an end of their counseling at the end of a year, we transition them to a volunteer who's trained in bereavement, so they're not just left hanging like, okay, now I've been seeing somebody once a week or once every other week, and now I have nothing. These volunteers can meet with them once a week, you know, every other week, once a month. And this has been really beneficial to us, we found over the last year, in reducing the wait times for people coming onto the service and supporting those people who are leaving the service. So just in bereavement alone, so total volunteer hours were 4,638, but in bereavement, almost 25% of that, 985. So it's been a significant contribution. Next slide, please. So you can see the success of the program. It's increased at over 400% in the last 11 years that we've been doing it. We have reduced the wait times. We used to have a wait list of about 12 to 15 folks, so having 3 is significant for us. And the success of the program is measured by everyone gets a client feedback survey who has been either in individual or group counseling. And we also measure by the number of clients we serve each year and whether those numbers are increasing, and they have consistently. And also our volunteers and the feedback that they give us from actually helping to do the groups and or working one-on-one. Next slide, please. Any questions?
Thanks, Sue, so much. If we can, there we go. Council colleagues, questions for Ms. Walker? I just had a quick one. How do you train the sort of peer support workers, right? The volunteer counselors? What sort of process do they go through? Obviously, it's a very sensitive matter, requires a certain amount of sophistication, I assume. So I expect there's a vetting process and then some ongoing support to those who are offering that bereavement counseling. So that would be my question. And I know Councillor Sullivan has a question, so I'll let her ask hers too, and then I'll go back to you, Sue. Councillor Sullivan, what's your question?
Thank you, Sue, for that presentation, and very good service that you provide, and very necessary service. I really appreciate everything that Beth Donovan does. I'm just curious, are there any other sources of funding that you have? Like, I mean, this takes the pressure off of primary care providers, and I'm just wondering if there's any funding from the Ministry of Health for the services that you do provide.
Okay. So, Sue, why don't you take the first 2 questions, and then I'll go to Councillor Barclay and Deputy Mayor for a second round. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So in terms of training, every volunteer who comes in who has direct client contact has to participate in our 6-week, 30-hour training, which is in person. And then there's an additional, depends on how quickly people go through the modules online, but it's about another 25 hours of training online to actually be with a client. Those who are in the bereavement program do that, and then they do an additional 6-week program that focuses on bereavement and all of the things that can come out of that. Because some of our folks who are dealing, for instance, in our day hospice program, may not have the same, like they have other supports around them. So these bereavement folks are one-on-one with the client, and there may not be anybody else in the room. They certainly have the counselor that they can talk to afterwards, but it's more as a specific skill set. So that's the training that these folks have to go through.
Okay.
In terms of funding, we do get funded by 65% from the Ministry of Health. We are expected to fundraise the difference. And as you can appreciate, the last 19 months have been difficult. We haven't been able to do our traditional fundraisers. So we've pivoted and done a lot of online things. We do receive donations from people who are grateful to have had our services, that sort of thing. But we are expected to raise that other 40% to make up what we need every year.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll go to Councillor Barclay and Deputy Mayor. So I'll take both questions and then we'll go back to Sue. Councillor Barclay?
Okay, thank you, Sue. I'm familiar with your grief and bereavement program, and you're doing great work. Mine is a very general question. Is given COVID, how has the demand increased? Can you quantify that in any way? Just a ballpark figure?
And before Sue does that, why don't we take Deputy Mayor's question? So Deputy Mayor, what's your question?
Okay, so yeah, thanks for everything you guys are doing there. That's great. My question will be probably similar to others that I will ask tonight. And for the other presenters tonight, I'll probably ask the same question. As you have heard from our finance director that we're overprescribed. So we're going to have to make some tough decisions. You know, governments are making tough decisions. You guys are making tough decisions too on your funding because of COVID for sure. So if my question will be to you and to probably the others on this call is if the council had to decide to cut the amount in half that they were delegating to you or to any of these organizations, would you still be able to use those funds? Would you still be able to maneuver with that? Or would you have to say, you know, we don't get the whole thing, we can't do it? And I'm saying that because there's been other programs where they either couldn't fulfill their obligation to do that, so they really return the money in a sense. So just that's my thought. And I think everybody should on the call should be thinking that. Okay, yes, I'm putting my accountant hat on, but anyways, I just wanted to ask that for you and for others. Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so to address the increase during COVID, last year we saw about a 20% increase. And this year, I don't know whether it's because people became more comfortable with doing things online or wanted to reach out. We've seen about a 30 to 35% increase so far. Our fiscal runs from April 1st to March 31st, so we're kind of 3/4 of the way through. And people who really want to participate in the group counseling, particularly those who are on the wait list for individual counseling, so we can offer them the support of a group first, they will absolutely take advantage of that. And they're just desperate to be able to talk to somebody and have somebody hear their story because they haven't been able to reach out to family members. It's, as I say, I can't really put my finger on what it is, but certainly the loss during COVID has been huge. And we've seen so many people come to us saying, you know, this is not the funeral that my father wanted. They wanted everybody there and they just couldn't have them there and they feel so guilty. And then they say, you know, I don't know if I can do it again in another 6 months to a year. I don't know if we can do this. So we have definitely seen an increase, but we've seen an increase every single year since we've had the bereavement counseling. And is that a product of people knowing that we're here and other people talking about it? Probably. And we don't anticipate that that's really ever going to decrease because there is a lack of counseling services available in our community, and particularly free ones. I don't know of any others that are free. And we work very closely with Lanark Leeds and Grenville Mental Health for the children's side of things so that we can refer the children to them and they refer the parents to us. So we're not duplicating services. That's really important to us to make sure that we're spreading the dollars as far as we can. In terms of if we lost the funding or if we only could have half of the funding, we would certainly continue our services. Would the wait list get longer? Yes, probably, because we would have reduced numbers of hours. We would try to recruit additional volunteers, but as you can appreciate, there's a cost to training those volunteers, specifically the bereavement ones when they go through the 6 weeks and then the additional 6 weeks of training. And it's a very special volunteer that wants to do that kind of work. So it's difficult finding. Usually we have volunteers who come in as in-home visiting volunteers or day hospice volunteers first. They get to know who we are and what we do, and then they say, I'd really like to help in the bereavement. So sometimes that process can be a year to 2 years with somebody volunteering before they move into that. But we've made a commitment to the community, and we will honor that. But will it increase wait lists? Probably yes.
Okay. So Councillor Sullivan, I'll go to you for a third round. I'm looking to council colleagues. I don't see any more hands. I have a quick question, but I'll wait until the end. So Councillor Sullivan?
Okay, thank you, Sue. I'm just, you just provoked a question that I have here. For people who could not have their typical or desired funeral services during COVID because of the COVID restrictions, I'm just wondering also with respect to people who are saying, regardless of COVID, I don't want any funeral service. I don't want any visitation. I don't want anything. Do you think that has increased the demand for bereavement counseling on families? If they don't have that opportunity to have the grieving, the family, the typical wake and funeral, do you think that's increased the demand for bereavement counseling too?
100%. We've heard that. We've had children coming in who've lost a parent, and the parent said, if I can't have what I planned all these years, I'm not going to have anything, or just a small graveside service. And yes, we have seen families coming in saying, I need closure. I didn't get closure. What am I going to do? So yes.
Yeah, that's too bad. Okay, thanks, Sue, and thanks for everything you do.
So just quickly, so you spoke about partnerships or kind of referrals from Leeds Grenville Children's Mental Health, or is it Addictions Mental Health, or is it both?
It's both. Yeah,
it's both.
We work quite closely with the Children's Mental Health because we don't focus as much on children. We do children's counseling, but if we can have them handle that side and then
right.
refer the parents.
Right. So you're referring to them versus them referring to you. Is that correct?
We refer both ways. Yes.
Okay. I only asked because I know there's been significant infusions of funds into children's mental health and addictions and mental health. So I'd hope those services are also available. I totally recognize the very unique role you play and how important that is. So I'm not diminishing that, but it's good to see that those relationships are there and you both can help each other in terms of serving clients.
For sure.
Okay. I don't see other questions. So if there are none, and again, I can't see everyone on the screen, so yell if I haven't seen you. I will move on. Thank you, Ms. Walker, very much. We appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Okay, so I've just lost my screen, Heather. So we are now going to the Curling Club. And I believe we have Mr. Randy Hughes with us in regards to some proposed improvements to the facility. Go ahead.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor and Councilor. Thank you for the opportunity to make an application, for this grant. Next slide, please. So most of you are probably familiar with the Curling Club. At least one of you are a member. The club's been around. We're in our 16th year of operation, and currently running during the pandemic, we have in excess of 300 members, which is only about a 10% reduction as to prior to COVID when we shut down in March of 2020. So from a club perspective, things probably couldn't be going any better given the circumstances. Next slide, please. So again, we're in one of the municipal buildings, an old Centennial Rink. It's now 50 years of age and starting to show its wear and tear. However, we have been, pretty good responsible tenants in replacing equipment as it's been needed, especially over the last year. We've spent probably upwards of about $100,000 between lights, the mechanical room, and on-ice heaters in the last 3 to 4 years. And we did receive, for the first time, support from the municipality in the repair to our sewer line, which was just completed post-COVID in the fall of 2020. Next slide, please. So again, we're a seasonal club for the most part. We have, like saying, over 300 members. Not necessarily surprisingly, but we have 70 new members to the club this year, which we're very, very happy to see. The club operates usually, 6 days a week normally. We offer a Learn to Curl program that's been fully subscribed this year with over 40 new curlers coming to the community. We have traditionally hosted Hay Day here when it's been operated, and we expect them to be hopefully operating again this coming summer. And for the first time, we hosted a YMCA camp that, from all reports, was very successful, and the anticipation is we will continue to host that going forward. The only other thing to add to that is we've also been approached to be support for the 2022 plowing match that's coming to the Kemptville. Next slide, please. So again, most of our members tend to be a little more mature. About half our members are 65 years of age or more. One of our members turns 100 in the next month. So we're going to have a little surprise for her. The other half of the members are obviously under that age. And if it had not been for COVID and the vaccine requirement, that membership number would be more substantial than that. We probably lost 30 or 40 junior players just because those under the age of 12 currently not vaccinated cannot participate. Next slide, please. So essentially we have three asks, just because we weren't necessarily anticipating getting the opportunity to ask for any supplemental revenue. So it's a municipal building. Our membership's getting older. We have had on occasion had to manually lift people to the upper hall. And it would be nice to have a chairlift put in to facilitate that. The dishwasher upstairs, which is now getting more use because we're using the upstairs hall for our socializing after curling, is seeing better days and could potentially be replaced. It was used, I believe, when the club bought it. And last but not least, the carpeting on the ice, again, is original to the curling club. And, you know, again, it would be nice to replace it at some point in the future. Next slide, please. So that this details specifics about the chairlift. We approached TLC Medical that operates a business here in town. It cost to be about $5,000, and we would access it through them. It would allow members that have mobility issues in a wheelchair using a walker to get to the upstairs hall, which has the capacity of about 200 people when it's fully operational. Next slide, please. Dishwasher, say no more. Right now it's getting a lot of use because all the socializing at the club does take place upstairs because of COVID, and we are starting to have some mechanical issues with it. Next slide, please. And the carpet is just breaking down from normal wear and tear after 16 years of use. Last slide, please. So again, we weren't anticipating being able to apply for any supplemental money. So we thank you for the opportunity to be able to at least talk to you about the club and let you know that for the most part of our existence, we've been very self-sufficient. But if the opportunity presents itself to get some supplemental support, we're not going to refuse it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I see Councillor Barclay's hand is up. Anyone else, colleagues? Not seeing anyone. So Councillor Barclay, fire away. Oh, and Councillor Sullivan. So let's take that as our first round. Councillor Barclay and then Councillor Sullivan. Go ahead.
Thank you, Randy, for that presentation. I'm going to ask you a very difficult question, and that is to break those three requests down in terms of needs and wants. We've got the chairlift, we've got the carpet, and we've got the dishwasher. They must have some sort of priority list as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to press you on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say if it was up to me without involving my board, I would say that the dishwasher would probably be number one right now. The chairlift would be number two, and the carpet would be our third most pressing need.
And what would your board say?
It might be close. Again, we don't have a lot of people that are at the club currently because of COVID that are using mobility devices. And I think that's partially because they've just decided to stay away given those circumstances. We know we have at least one member of the community that is a wheelchair curler that was here earlier this year and would have liked to have been able to join everybody else upstairs, but we had no way to get him up there safely. So it's more of a futuristic situation to have when we do have, back to, regular operating, and we do have wheelchair curlers or adult social members are in the building to be able to have them engage with the club in a regular social fashion.
Thanks very much. A hard question, I know.
No problem.
Councillor O'Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Randy, for that presentation. My question is they're all very good, legitimate requests. I would probably agree with your, I'd agree with the chair lift being the top priority. And having said that, I'm wondering, have you looked at any accessibility grants to help fund the chairlift? Because that's going to make the upstairs more accessible for people who have limitations. And I know that I've been there to events where it was tricky for some people to get upstairs. And so, excuse me.
The short, go ahead.
I think that would be, I'm just wondering, have you looked at any options?
Apparently, back when Barb Gore was our president, they did investigate something. Our limitation right now is that we're due for an audit. And because of COVID, the last audit did not take place, and they need one full operating year's worth of receipts. So a complete audit will be done at the conclusion of this season. At that time, it'll be in a position to make application for Trillium and other types of grants of that nature.
Okay, thank you. But and probably the dishwasher would be another good thing, especially if you're going to make sandwiches for the plowing match.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor, I don't see you. You're good? Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. Good luck with the rest of your presentations.
Thank you. We appreciate your good work. Good luck with the season.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. All right. Next, we're going to hear from Mr. Rousseau with the Kemptville Male Choir. Mr. Rousseau, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and I'm a member of the Kemptville Male Choir. I'd like to mention that as I sit here presenting to you, the guys are back in the sanctuary at St. John's United Church right now, having their weekly practice. And we're getting our Christmas program up and running. And the program will be performed at least 5 times in December, including the Christmas Promenade on December 11th, once at Kemptville Retirement Living and Bayfield a couple of times as well. So we're getting quite busy. I would also, listening to the other presentations and seeing the roster of people that are presenting, I would like to say that I am so glad that I belong to a community like Kemptville. My wife and I are in North Granville. My wife and I have been here for 30 years, and we've never regretted our decision to move out from Ottawa and come here. So the choir itself, the Kemptville Male Choir, has been around for quite a few years. We don't have a historian, but I can say that it's been around for at least 25 years. And we were under other names before, but since we haven't performed in 2 years, we thought not only was it a good time to restart, but also rename ourselves. And now we're the Kemptville Concert Choir. I'm sorry, the Kemptville Male Choir. There's an error in the slide there. Our membership is approximately 15 to 17 singers, health dependent. And more than 2/3 of those are from the North Granville and surrounding area. Our 2 previous music directors, including our current interim director, Beth Vandermeer and Louise Atchison, are both North Granville residents of long date. We are restarting this choir. We started practicing just after Thanksgiving with the easing of restrictions, and I'll get to the pandemic a little later and why we are here tonight. What we aim to do as we reformed is, number one, renew our leadership. I mentioned we have an interim director. Coming in the new year, we have found a new director to lead us into 2022. And it's a pretty exciting thing. This young lady is from Oxford Station, very talented artist. What we are aiming to do with the choir as we've restarted is to perform for the benefit of seniors and of other people who would probably not otherwise get to see a choir and have an entertaining evening or afternoon with a bunch of fun guys. Next slide, please. So as we've gotten back together and we've planned this deliberately over the summer, two new realities hit us in the face. Number one is that our expenses are increasing, partly because just finding a place to operate out of is more expensive, but also musical leadership. We can't count anymore on having volunteer leadership. We have to pay for that position. Beth and Louise offered many, many years of great service for us, but we've created a position that will be paid. And as I've mentioned, a local artist will be taken over as director in January. The other thing is, I mentioned earlier, the pandemic, and the pandemic has sort of put a stick in our spokes, in our wheels, in our ability to generate revenue to meet our expenses. And so for the foreseeable future, until we can figure a way out to perform at a limited number of events for paid admittance, we have to find a way to cover our expenses. And so that is why we're coming to you. We're requesting $4,500 to cover the year 2022. Our expenses have gone from an annual amount of about $4,500 to about $8,000. That's in the details of the presentation of the application. We have imposed greatly increased membership dues, and we're able to cover $3,500 of that $8,000. And so the net cost to cover, one way or another, will be $4,500. Next slide, please. The Kemptville Male Choir has a long history of performing for free or for very low cost to whoever wants to invite us. And that has meant a fair number of performances in the past in seniors' residences, for example, such as Bayfield Manor. And I've mentioned the ones we've already set up for this December. Now these events, they contribute directly to the health and wellness of these residents, and also to anybody else who can come and enjoy one of our performances. We found them from the feedback we get at the end of the performances and the chats we have with the residents and all, that they're engaging, they're a fun social activity. We represent friendly visitors, and sometimes we run into past acquaintances at these various residences. One of the things that when Louise Atchison joined us in 2018, she joined us because she was already overloaded with other work, but she just couldn't stand the thought of the choir, a male choir in Kemptville being such a treasure for the community in her mind, having to basically pack up. So if I could have the next slide, please. This is a picture of us at our last Christmas concert in 2019. In that picture, if you could zoom in and make it clear, you'd notice there's a fair amount of community-minded leaders in there. First and foremost is the lady whose back you see, our director, Louise. And Louise, if you will remember, in 2019 created a show called Shake, Rattle, and Roll. And we held that show, or she held that show, for the benefit of Kemptville District Home Support. On the next slide, which is my last slide, you will see that in the program, there's the guys in the blue ties and black shirts as representatives from the what was then the Ottawa Valley Male Choir, but is now the Kemptville Male Choir, who made up most of the male chorus for the show. And this is typical of our choir wanting to be involved in activities that will benefit the community and the various organizations that operate in our community. Earlier, it was mentioned that measures of success would be sought in this. And what we've set as a goal for 2022 is to be able to give such performances either at no cost or very low cost in seniors' homes or other settings, 10 performances for 2022. We hope to do 5 in the spring and 5 later in the year in September to December. Another goal is to follow along the hopes of Louise, is to keep this choir continuing and singing, growing, performing. so that we can find more and more opportunities to be of service in this community. At this point, I'll turn it over to you, Mayor Beckford.
Great, thank you. I see Councillor Barkley has his hand up already. Is that right, Councillor?
Yep.
Okay, fire away. Go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. I note that the membership fees are, from my experience, quite high at $260 a pop. What are you doing in terms of outreach and trying to build the choir greater than 15 members? I'd be curious.
Well, it is, as a matter of fact, growing. One of the sad and happy news out of this is, you'll remember there was Louise was also leading another group called the Singing Seniors. And unfortunately, they haven't been able to reform. And so one of the things is the guys from that choir have started migrating to ours. So we've grown the membership that way. In our choir, there is a number of people there who also belong to other music groups, bands, or do solo acts. They have friends, and so we have friends of friends. And the other thing, again, referring back to our new leadership, musical leadership, is often a new music director will attract people. So that's all part of it, sort of an organic growing and turnover in a choir.
Thank you, Jean-Jacques. I think it's quite a commitment on behalf of the members to pay that kind of membership in order to perform for free for so many different groups, and also to mount fundraisers for other community groups within
Absolutely,
North
they're dedicated guys. They're there 2 hours a week, every week. When we were doing the Shake, Rattle, and Roll show, they actually had two 2-hour practices a week from May till November when the show was actually put on. Very dedicated bunch of guys.
They obviously like singing together. So thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Colleagues, any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Councillor Barkley's other question was what happens if we get no money or part of what we were asking for, and I'd like to address that. We're a resourceful choir, and we do intend to keep going, find a way to keep going. As mentioned, it's a little pandemic dependent. I mean, if the pandemic wasn't here, we'd be a self-sufficient choir. And so we intend to try and find ways to perform outdoors. And some of those will be benefit concerts, others will be so we can cover some expenses. But unfortunately, the expenses we're facing are today's reality.
Okay, I don't see other colleagues wanting to ask a question. I just have a point of clarification. So the $4,500 requested is to retain a choir director exclusively, or are there other things captured in that proposed amount?
Yeah, so I included the details in the application. So there is a director, and that's the top line. We do have a pianist. We are paying rent at St. John's, and now we have to cover our own insurance. We do have to buy music from time to time, and we may have to either buy or rent equipment depending on where we're performing. So those are the kinds of expenses that add up to $8,000. Between the rent and a new director, about $3,500, the increase is found right there. So. Yeah.
Okay, so your dues pay $3,500 and their grant request is for $4,500 to make up the difference. Is that correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I was looking at your PowerPoint net of the submission, so I see that now. Okay, wonderful. Okay. And I see Councillor O'Sullivan and Deputy Mayor now, so I'll go to them. And I did want to say I did have the pleasure of seeing Shake, Rattle, and Roll, and it was fantastic. It was a real pleasure to see that performance. Lots of different elements, that's for sure. Okay, Councillor O'Sullivan and Deputy Mayor, please. And then we'll move on to our next presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be very quick. Thank you, Mr. Russo, for your presentation. And I've been to some of the fundraising events for this choir. I think they were in North Gore at it was a Christmas concert that I've gone to for a couple of years. I'm just wondering, do you have some other fundraising events on the horizon for your group?
At this point, no. We're taking it we took this as a 4-month period to make sure that we could get together, wear masks, and be productive. And
Right.
it's really working out well. So now we're going to start exploring what's going to happen in late May and early June.
Okay, so this may be a one-time request, then you may be able to do some fundraising concerts that will cover your costs for the music director and rent in the future. Is that?
It is definitely our hope that we go back to that. The Christmas concert you mentioned is a tradition with our choir. We try not to steal North Grenville Concert Choir's lunch by holding a Christmas concert here. And so, but those are occasions that are special to us, and definitely if we can go back to being self-sufficient, that's the way we want to operate.
Well, you can never get too much Christmas music concerts, so that's great. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Hi, Jean-Jacques. Thanks for your presentation. My questions are pretty much answered. The fundraising, yes, you attempt that. And I guess the other question I put out to the group was if you didn't get all the funding or none, that you would figure out how to operate. And I totally get that this is a COVID, it's a reality with a lot of charities out there. I'm with the Knights of Columbus. We go through the same thing. So we're always, struggling to raise funds for sure. So I know where you're at, and thank you for your presentation.
Welcome. My pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Russo. Best of luck, and we appreciate your time this evening. It's a great group of guys.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Okay, Council, with your permission, I'll keep going unless you need a short break. We'll keep going. Okay. Then we will move to the the Kemptville Snowmobile Club. And I see Mr. Rousseau on the screen still. And I think we're looking for a different presenter for the Kemptville Snowmobile Club.
We are, Your Worship. We're looking for Bob Shearer.
Yes, Mr. Shearer there.
I am present. My name is Bob Scher. I am one of the new members on the executive for the Kemptville Snowmobile Club, and I was asked to do the presentation tonight for the club.
Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So basically, it's our 50th anniversary. The club started in 1972. 2022 is the 50th year of the club. And what we want to do is have different activities to celebrate. So our activities are currently curtailed by COVID. And one of the things we thought of doing to be able to attract attention is do a brochure and a trail map highlighting our 50th year and also highlighting North Grenville, Kemptville itself. What we're asking for is $2,000. We're asking to cover the printing cost, $500 for the brochure, and $2,500 for the trail map. That's a total cost of $3,000. We'd like to partner with North Grenville. We'll cover the other $1,000. Normally, we ask sponsors to ask. We request donations. We sell ads that we post on the back of the map, and that covers our cost to print the map. This year and last year, due to COVID, and out of respect to our sponsors and their loss of business or lack of business that they've had over the past almost 2 years, we're not asking them to donate. Next slide, please. We are part of the community. We've been around for 50 years. It's hard to believe, but it's 50 years. I've only been out here for 12, active with the club for coming up to my 4th year. And when I find out it has a history of 50 years, that's pretty impressive. The club has done activities or partnered with the community before, such as the rail trail. Fortunately, through the Trillium Foundation and the endeavors of the club president, they were able to obtain $20,000 to give towards the rail trail. Right now, we participate with the Ferguson Forest Center. We groom the ski trails. That's done at no cost. We also promote local businesses and trades. The majority of work that we have done on our trails, our clubhouse, it's all done by local people. And in better times, we make contributions to different charitable organizations. Easter Seals, we were able to make our donation last year. We were able to hold a last minute rally. We were able to raise enough money to be able to send 2 children off to camp for a summer trip. Unfortunately, we were not able to support the other groups just due to not being able to hold our fundraising events. Next slide, please. So the brochure is basically going to highlight the club, the history of the club. There was an old building on that house that was built back in the 1900s, no longer exists. There's now a new clubhouse in there. We also want to be able to show what we can offer to the community with the clubhouse. It has a meeting hall, full kitchen facilities. Also, we want to keep our involvement with the club. The plowing match is coming on up. We want to be part of that. We want to highlight what we've done for the community. Our trails, our trail network is actually quite extensive. We're pushing close to 300 kilometers of trails in and around Kemptville. That's quite an accomplishment considering there's clubs that occupy a larger space or a larger amount of land. They don't have that high a number of trails. We want to continue with our charitable donations. It's important to receive and to give back. And we also want on that brochure have contact information for the executive. If you know who to contact, you can contact them, ask questions, make arrangements to come. And there's going to be more things in the brochure that's going to be discovered as we go along in developing it. Next slide, please. And now, why a printed map? This is the age of electronics, GPS. Look at what we're doing tonight. We're doing a Zoom meeting. Maps are still very important. We base a lot of stuff on GPS, on electronics. The Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs has an interactive map that we can go to. We can map out our trip that we want to do for the day, the distances, and put on points on our GPS on where we would like to see and stop. Now, GPS can also be on a phone. We've run into problems such as low signal or the battery dies. So you're out of luck, you don't have a GPS, that's where you pull out the map. Also on the GPS, there's limited view or information presented on the map, on the GPS itself. And then with the GPS, conversely, you can have too much information. You can get way too much information that you cannot see, or it may not be applicable to actually being on the trail. So the map assists riders. It's right there in front of them. You can pull it out of a glove box. It could be on a handlebar bag. It could be on a tank bag. They can see the map. They know exactly what is there, what services are available, where to go, and what they can do, where they can go. It's also used as a handy reference for contact information locally and for the club. Next slide, please. That's a GPS image. That's what you're seeing when you're traveling on a snowmobile. You don't get much information. You just have the trail highlighted and your directional signal. You can bring up roads, you can bring up rivers, you can bring up service stations, restaurants, all that. They may not be on the trail, but they're around. Next slide, please. So what the map does is it provides a full view of the snowmobile club, and the full view can be based upon the particular club or the district. Also with the map, trail locations change. It's very important to have an accurate map. If the trail has been moved, the landowner has moved permission to cross their land, we need to make sure that the map is accurate. It's also a great way to promote local businesses. We have trails that connect to local businesses. That's going to bring money into those businesses, restaurants, gas stations, Canadian Tire for parts and oil. And at the same time, now that COVID's easing up, accommodations. By having the map, it shows a safe trail access to those different businesses and services. Another important feature is it also shows snowmobilers where they can and cannot go. A good example is Ferguson Force Center. The trail is very clearly marked out. There's a problem with riders going off. How do you enforce it? If you have an accurate trail map, somebody's off, you have the proof to show they're off a trail, call the police, have a fine. The maps are handed out everywhere. Riders have a tendency to carry a couple extra maps of the district just to give out to other snowmobilers. We use them for our next rides. We also make notes on them. That way we can have points of interest, where we ate. Also, it's a good way to be able to to recall that particular community in case you want to come back in summertime or later in the year just to see what it's like. And snowmobilers collect maps. They'll have maps from years and years ago and be able to compare trails and where they went, and it's a means to draw people back to the area. Next slide, please. This is a club map. It's unfortunately not Kemptville's because we're out of maps. All the maps that were printed last year have all been given out. So this is a map of a club just north of us, and it gives you the trails. It has some highlights. It marks out what's on it. If we go into the next one, which is a district map. So next slide, please. It shows you everything. No way you're going to be able to see that while you're moving on a trail, even when you stop trying to locate yourself. It's a great overview. It's a great way to plan out. But at the same time, a club map is really important. Next slide, please. And the last slide. So this is actually a blow up on the district map showing what our map normally would look like, larger scale. So that way it highlights what we have in our particular community. One thing that I noticed with the presentation, a couple of presenters have already said, is metrics. How do we measure if we're successful in drawing in business to the community? On any given Sunday or Saturday when it's snowy out, look at the number of snowmobiles in front of restaurants, on the trails around town, and pulling into the service stations. Thank you very much for your time and allowing me to present.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Questions,
You're welcome.
colleagues? So my question was going to be the digital question, and you seem to have answered that quite well in terms of the value of paper copies of the maps. Can you tell me what membership is like this year for the Kemptville Snowmobile Club? I know we heard from your president just last week. Where are you at with membership?
As far as exact numbers go, as of our last meeting, we were well over, actually we're pretty close to 500 members.
Okay.
And
Okay,
that's
thank you.
incredible because it's a sport that's growing. And it's just not growing here, it's growing everywhere.
Okay, wonderful. And what's just out of curiosity, the season typically, given sort of the changing Canadian winters, is it what typically do you project?
Well, we can be on the trails around Kemptville anywhere from last winter, they were open for 9 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
Average, we can get about 10.
Okay, good stuff. Okay. And of course, it's not lost on us that they're a significant partner in terms of rail trail maintenance and other trails. So we certainly have recognized your value and how important you are to multi-use of some of the trails that you obviously use heavily within and around Kemptville and North Granville. If there are no other questions, I think we'll move on to the next presenter. I don't see any. Thank you very much. It was a very thorough presentation. So we appreciate your careful attention to detail and giving us an opportunity to learn some more about the Snowmobile Club. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, I'm going to have us keep going. I don't see anyone signaling for a break. So I think we're going to move on to the Kemptville Winter Trail. And I believe this evening we are hearing from, who are we? Oh, okay. Matthew, and Matthew, I'll let you pronounce your last name. Should you be with us?
Laguisto.
Laguisto, welcome. Mr. Laguisto, fire away.
All right, next slide, please. All right, hi. So my name is Matthew Laguisto, and I'm representing the Kemptville Winter Trail. For those that don't know, we're a nonprofit corporation started by and run by North Granville community members that produce a high-quality, multi-use winter trail system that runs through the Ferguson Forest Center. Next slide, please. These are some points of interest that we'll be covering in this presentation. I'll be cutting through them pretty quick because I did add a lot of slides. Next slide, please. 2020-2021 was our inaugural year where we were able to get the bare necessities required in terms of equipment and volunteers to run through the season. Next slide, please. That being said, even with a very quick startup, we did attract some attention from the Kitchissippi Winter Trail, formerly known as SJAM. This is the organization that's contracted by the NCC that builds and maintains 27 kilometers of multi-use trail systems that runs along the Sir John A. Parkway in Ottawa. And they've been doing this for like the last 6 years, and they're quite impressed by their visit. Next slide. Here are some community members using our facility. In case you're wondering what she's doing there, that is called skijoring. And my dogs have outright vetoed that. I'm not allowed to go down that route with them. Next slide, please. We are, like any nonprofit, we wouldn't be able to operate without our volunteers. They truly are the core of our operation, and I'll be addressing this later in my presentation. Next slide. When it comes to mental and physical health, connection with nature is a massive bonus. The Japanese actually call it Shirin-yukin, or forest bathing, which is a school of science that examines the effects of being outdoors surrounded by nature, which has been proven to show the reduction in blood pressure and stress while boosting energy and the immune system. Pairing that with fresh air and exercise, it's just a no-brainer that you're going to feel better when you get back to your car. Next slide. We are also in a very unique area to draw outdoor enthusiasts from all over the region, be it to exercise in areas that aren't as densely populated, like the Gatineau Trails, the Sir John A. Parkway, Kitchissippi Trail, or even the Trans-Canada Pathway. Or sometimes people just want a change of scenery. We have an opportunity to draw from so many other communities and bring them into Kemptville. Next slide, please. Here is our trail map that we're currently offering, which is roughly 5.5 kilometers of groomed multi-trail space. We are currently looking at an expansion on the Woodland Lake, and in the next few weeks, so we'll see how that goes. Next slide, please. One of the big problems with general winter activities is equipment. And while some uses of our pathway do require equipment, this doesn't exclude those that just want to go outside and walk. This makes our area accessible to everybody in the community. Next slide. That being said, we had an estimated 2,100 users on our trail last year, and that was only roughly over 37 days of operation. I did mention that we went from conception to operation very quickly, and that played a big part of that. But that being said, even after only 37 days, we estimated that we had over 300 users from outside North Grenville visiting our area by word of mouth alone. Next slide. I'll just talk about tourism a little bit. So next slide. And next slide, please. Helping to drive tourism is every organization's responsibility, and we are no exception. Bringing more people into town only puts North Grenville on more people's maps, and all local businesses benefit from this. While you guys have a very difficult choice ahead of you allocating funds, we think where we stand out is that when we draw tourists in, they're staying here, and Ferguson Forest Center being a very centralized location. What I'm trying to stress here is that we aren't a pit stop along the journey. We are the destination. While we estimate our visitors are spending roughly about 2 to 3 hours of their day in our community, and frankly, when they visit, they can only help feed dollars into our local businesses. Next slide. I'm a sucker for a good Shakespeare quote here and there. Next slide. I'm also a father of 2 and a sucker for a good dad joke. But seriously, I chose the previous quote for a good reason. We need a horse, and preferably a machine to pull our new, or preferably a machine to pull our new trail groomer. I hear feed's pretty expensive anyway. What you're seeing here is just some examples of what we are currently considering. Next slide. As I mentioned before, our volunteer teams are the core of our operation, especially Bruce, who you're seeing here, and Noel. without their snowmobiles, we wouldn't have had a season last year, and therein lies our Achilles heel. It's their machine. To put the volunteer hours that they do and the wear and tear on their machines it's just frankly more than we can ask of them. Their dedication aside, life sometimes changes priorities, and without them, we wouldn't be able to operate, and therefore the community loses a valuable resource, which is why we're here today with our submission. Next slide, please. Considering trail groomers require specialized snowmobiles that most riders don't use, we were very fortunate to find Bruce and Noel when we did, and acquiring a new machine is costly. That requires time to acquire because of supply chain issues, which are affecting lots of industries through a COVID-19 environment. Now it's pretty obvious that $5,000 doesn't buy a snowmobile or an ATV, but that's sort of the idea. We're just looking for a good head start. Next slide, please. Along with the contribution from the municipality of which we've applied for, we aim to do extensive fundraising on our own through fundraising events, such as a general fundraiser, as well as holding classes that can teach the community skills like how to wax your skis, how to be comfortable out in the cold element. And we also will be pushing a membership drive to continue generating revenue until we hit our goal. And once we do meet our goal, these machines have a long lifespan and will in turn provide us breathing space to look at other community opportunities, like collaborations with other outdoor winter groups, such as the group maintaining the pond at Curry Park, or municipality with the Toboggan Hill, as well as general community expansion. We do have aspirations of moving past the boundaries of the Ferguson Forest Center, again, to provide more facilities to the members of this community. And that is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was very thorough once again. Appreciate all the information and insight. I see Councillor O'Sullivan has her hand up, so I'll go to her first. Thanks. Councillor Sullivan.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Excuse me. Thanks very much, Matt, for that presentation. Very good connections with economic development and tourism and health and safety, and just all around very good, thorough presentation. I'm just wondering, as long as we have you have the assistance from the Kemptville Snowmobile Club for help with grooming until you can purchase the new machine for the club itself. Is there any chance, if something fell through, that you could utilize anything that's used at Limerick Forest to bridge a necessity that might occur? Have you looked into that?
That would be one option for us. And we do have plans to communicate with that organization, but we would be taking away resources from them. So yeah, unfortunately, the snow's falling everywhere at the same time. So it would put us at a disadvantage. Yeah,
for sure. So you need to do fundraising. Even if you get 5,000 from us, you're still short. What is the plan then for until you get it all? Because I understand that there's a supply problem this year anyway, that the chances of actually getting a new machine this year are pretty low.
Yeah, definitely. From the calls I've made already, it's at least a year out. From the time you put I assume your deposit at the very least, a year to be assembled and trucked over. Now we're hoping that in a year, like, we won't have the funds ready without extensive fundraising through either the municipality or the community. But realistically speaking, we're not expecting to meet our goal for at least a year. So we're hoping that supply management will rectify itself within that time frame.
Okay. So have you thought of asking membership fees? I mean, although the access to the trails, what about donation boxes? Has that ever been thought of?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We do have a GoFundMe set up that provided some substantial funding last year. We did have a few people sign up for memberships as well. Although because of the rapid nature of our startup, we didn't have a lot of time to push that aspect of our organization. That will be something that will be addressed this year.
Okay, well, I thank you to you and to Sarah and everyone else who participated, because I think it's an amazing asset, and we'll see what we can do to help out. But I'm happy to hear that you're looking at fundraising on your own too. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just a quick question again, I don't see other hands up. What is your relationship with the Kemptville Snowmobile Club a year-by-year affair? How are you navigating that commitment? Because obviously the Snowmobile Club is donating considerable volunteer hours to make that happen. Is that correct? Or are they doing all of the trail creation, or do you have volunteers also doing it, or is it exclusively with the Snowmobile Club right now?
So as far as I know, and I might be mistaken on this, that Bruce and Noel are volunteers that do this exclusively for us. I don't actually know what their association with the Snowmobile Club is, if any.
Oh, I believe they act on behalf of the Snowmobile Club, if I'm not mistaken.
I'd have to double check on that for you, Nancy.
Okay, Doreen, Councillor Sullivan? Did you have anything else to add there? Okay.
Oops, sorry. I believe that they are compensated for their fuel costs, but I think their time and the use of their machines is strictly volunteer. So they're great community partners, no doubt.
Yeah, and I guess for context, my question is, are you, obviously you've relied heavily on that in the past. I was an avid cross-country skier in those trails last year, so really embrace the opportunity to be in Ferguson in the winter in that way. So I think you're correct that it did create a destination experience for some outside of North Grenville, and it also created an opportunity for some avid cross-country skiers within North Grenville to stay here, right? And to avail of everything we have to offer and not have to drive elsewhere for trails if they want to groom trails. That being said, obviously the partnership with Bruce and the Snowmobile Club is so fundamental to your capacity to offer those groom trails. So it sounds like you don't necessarily have a multi-year relationship forged for the future, but they have agreed to do it again this year. That would be your understanding?
So we do have a commitment from our volunteers for operating this season.
Okay.
And as far as I know, this is a year-by-year basis. I know Bruce is considering selling his snowmobile to us, but that has been delayed as well due to supply management issues. So he can't get a sled himself. So he's holding on to what he has for now. So we're sort of in a state of stasis, really. Now, our plan to obtain a sled to pull the machine or an ATV with treads, depending, is not exclusive to purchasing a new piece of equipment. It's really to purchase the right equipment at the right time. If we do get presented with a good opportunity to acquire equipment at even used, we're definitely open to that. That may buy, these machines do have a long lifespan, and that might provide us with enough breathing space to continue saving for a new machine in years to come, or additional trail grooming equipment.
Okay, perfect. Okay, any other questions, colleagues, on this one? Okay, I don't see anyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Leguiso, for your presentation. Much appreciated. I've promised council a 5-minute break before we hear the remaining 3 presentations. So if you could just mute and stop your camera, and I'm so sorry for those remaining 3 presenters, but we'll be really quick. We just need a 5-minute break. Thank you so much.
I'm back. It's Doreen.
Thank you,
Okay,
Councillor
I'm back
O'Sullivan.
too. Yeah. I believe we have all of council now. No, we're just waiting for Councillor Barkley, Deputy Mayor. See Deputy Mayor. Great. Okay. Okay, we have all of council. So I think we can resume, Heather's.
That's
Is that
correct,
your
Your Worship.
sense? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, then without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Barb Tobin with the Kemptville Youth Center and Bruce. Bruce, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I apologize. Is Bruce with you, Barb, or is it just yourself today?
No, Bruce is here. He just hasn't unmuted himself.
Oh, okay. How do you say Bruce's last name?
Wello.
Wello, thank you. Okay. Okay. So you guys can fire away when you're ready. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to discuss our budget request this evening and your continued support for the work of the Kemptville Youth Center, community youth, and the community at large. And as said, joining me is President Bruce. The Kemptville Youth Center is a safe space for youth ages 12 to 18. Our 28-year history has well established the role KYC plays in our community for youth, and it has never been made more clear than during these last difficult months, the need for having a daily resource for youth to support their mental health and wellness and physical health in a reliable, safe support system. We actively, even through the pandemic, have engaged and maintained a safe place for youth to gather in the center or through our virtual format. For KYC youth and our community youth, our place is the space youth can exercise indoors or out, enjoy healthy snacks and meals in a welcoming, teen-friendly environment. Seeing over 500 unique youth in a year, we listen to our youth and feel we have a clear understanding of where we can see value added in our request this evening. Our continued growth in daily numbers at the center has given us insight into the importance of play and need for a free social physical activity space. This year's community grant request comes on the recommendation of the KYC board, who keep the KYC building in shape and ready to be used by KYC and also our community at large. From the slide, you can see installing a basketball half court in our backyard area has been a focus for the board, youth, and staff for some time, enhancing and transforming some of our backyard area into another active space. Perhaps we can post the next slide. This fall, 2 board members championed the process for installation, taking us to the very last step to complete the court. Board expertise and community resources for material allowed the hardworking team the ability to take the court to this state and ready for its final step. I'll turn this over to President Bruce to describe the efforts. Bruce, to you. Did we lose Bruce?
Welcome, Bruce. Are you with us? We can't hear you.
Bruce is there. His mic is not muted. He may need to turn up the volume on his own laptop or device.
I don't think he's speaking. Maybe he can't hear us.
Ah, I see him now.
I see him, but I don't hear. He's not speaking.
No, it doesn't look like he can hear us. Barb, do you want to carry on his
I will
behalf?
carry on.
perhaps? Okay.
I will
thank
carry
you.
on and he can hold that grim grin he's got going on. It's unfortunate, and I hope he does realize he's unmuted, because to be honest, the efforts of Claude, our board member, and Bruce, both have spent hours with their team and volunteering to prepare the backyard as you see it there. There's been a surprise happening. As you can see, we already have the post installed and everything has been graded, and with community volunteer support and also community machinery donated and materials donated from local companies, we have the prep work done for that final stage of paving. This is a half course court, and it is something that the youth have asked for a number of years. And we see value added to the back of our community area. We have already had the neighbors offering to come over to assist because they're ready to come with their grandchildren when this is fully prepared next spring. We are requesting $5,000 for material and labor, and the board is determined to see this to completion in the new year. We continue to maintain strong connections with other organizations and service clubs. I just waved goodbye to the Sparks this evening as I was sitting here, and a number of community organizations and businesses are using our facility. The experience of the pandemic has provided a confirmed understanding of the importance in having areas to play. This investment through our yearly attendance numbers at KYC, and also the use of space for all youth and community not-for-profits and for profit organizations as well, certainly targets your investing in the community. Entering our 28th year, we know that the addition of this half court will provide many years of safe play for our youth at KYC and also youth in the community. And I'm not sure if Bruce is available, but if he is, at this time, we'd entertain questions. In particular, you could ask him about all the backbreaking work they did to level that and get the back area prepared for this half court. And I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thanks. Just keeping an eye on Bruce to see if he's with us. I don't know, Barbara, if you'd like to give him a call to cue him, if that's helpful to you or not, but you're more than welcome to do that.
Well, I texted him during the break and he didn't respond, so I will try right now.
Okay.
Let's see if he's there, but I certainly can entertain questions while I'm doing it.
Okay. My question
Maybe I
is,
can.
yes, it's okay. My question is just around in-kind labor. Is this something the municipality could take on, or is the paving of that half court requiring a particular expertise?
So this is certainly where Claude Smith, who has worked in, who is a board member and has worked in this area as her partner has as well for years, are the experts, and Bruce has worked with closely. That's a little disappointed he hasn't unmuted himself to describe that process, because that is all in their hands. There are possibilities, certainly first stop rentals, all those connections that they have made, all the granular lay that you see there was all donated through their efforts. So we're at that last stage where we know we have to put that final cost to it at a cost of currently 3 quotes. And of course, pricing for paving does change, as the Public Works Department has said always. But in the spring, it's looking that would come in under $5,000 to finish that off for safety purposes and making sure the youth have a half court and the community has something to attend as well.
Okay. Again, we do want to give you that chance to call Bruce if that's helpful. I didn't mean to ask that question midway. Maybe we should just allow you to do that in case he picks up. And then I can go to Councillor Barkley. So just a minute, Councillor Barkley.
I did try the unmute via text. No response.
No, clearly not.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's enjoying the presentation.
Indeed. Okay, so we'll go to Councillor Barkley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to pick up on your question, and I think it's something that maybe I can bring to Director Dunlop in terms of being able to take care of the paving. We might have the resources and the expertise to do that on behalf of the Kemptville Youth Center. And if we can do that, that might be an option that works out. You know, I think it goes without saying I'm a great supporter and champion of the Kemptville Youth Center. And if we can't do it, we'd be looking at this request, at least I would, very favorably. So let me take this to Public Works and before we have to make a decision and see what we can do.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor O'Sullivan, please, unless Barbara, you want to comment further on that?
Well, thank you for that. And certainly I would speak on behalf of the board members who put all the sweat equity into this, that certainly that anything that would bring this project to its final stage and let youth and the community be able to use it, and our user groups like the Sparks and those folks here to be able to get out in the spring and on the court, we'd be happy to follow through with that.
Definitely a great initiative and great to be able to extend the capacity for those youth to use the center outdoors and in. I am going to recognize Councillor Sullivan, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Barb, for that presentation. I think the Kemptville Youth Center does a lot of great work and provides a big need, fills a big gap in the municipality. So that's great. My question is regarding the basketball. And I just wanted to clarify that this would be available to everyone in the community, not just people who regularly attend the Kemptville Youth Center?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Thanks.
absolutely.
Because as part of the Parks and Recreation and Culture Master Plan, it was identified the need for basketball courts. And as you know, we're already investing a great deal of money into Riverside Park, but basketball courts were not specifically in it at this point in time. So if there was basketball courts to be, or a half court at the Kemptville Youth Center, that would certainly fill the gap for the meantime for other members of the community. So that's good to know that it would be available to all. So thank you.
See Bruce on the screen. Bruce, can you hear us?
Yes, I got cut off, but I'm back with you now. Thank you.
Yay!
Sorry, Barb.
That's
We'll
okay.
just go straight to the point, and Barbara's done a fabulous job of providing as much information as possible. Councillor Barkley and I were asking about the feasibility of the municipality taking on the paving. Obviously, there is some in-house capacity. So we wondered if you had any comment on the kind of expertise required to actually, pave it to have court standards for your youth center members.
I think it's a fairly basic operation. I would think your people would be more than competent of doing it.
Awesome.
I hadn't,
Councillor
that
Barkley,
hadn't occurred to us, but it's a thought.
Okay. Councillor Barkley, did you have any follow-ups there, or is that what you needed?
Sorry. Yeah. Let's
Okay.
take it to Public Works and see what they say.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Apart from that, I don't see any other questions. I want to recognize that I've actually sent a couple of groups to the youth center that were looking for space. So super appreciate the youth center's capacity to provide a facility at a time when there's a limited number of public or private spaces available for gatherings. So thank you for your considerable efforts, Bruce, and Barb, of course. I don't know if you have any other comments on the painstaking work to flatten the back there to make sure that when the paving happens, it goes well. Or any other final comments on the process to date?
I'd just like to comment that we were very fortunate. Both members of the board of directors and volunteers came and helped us. We also received the initial asphalt laying free of charge from Coco, the local
Oh, great.
the local store from Coco.
Okay.
And Neil at First Stop very kindly came along with some of his equipment and helped to lay it down. So it's been a bit of a communal effort already. So if John's able to help us with this further, that would be wonderful.
Well, we have Mr. Dyke, our CEO, on this call, as well as Mark Guy from Parks and Rec. So and Karen is here, I see, from Public Works. So I'm sure they can have a fairly quick conversation about a way
We'll
forward
follow
and
up on
whether
that.
or not, this can be an in-kind contribution, if you will. So we'll make sure to circle back with you on that. And thank you again for all that you're doing on behalf of those who are using the youth center right now.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for your patience. Take care. I just muted myself. So we have two more presentations this evening. And the next one is from the Rural Fetal, FASD, I should say, I think, Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder or Disease. I apologize if I don't have the acronym right. I'll leave it to you to give us some insight into this presentation. I believe we're welcoming Rob and Shelley Moore, is that right?
Yes, well, unfortunately, it's just me for tonight. Life called and Shelley will be unable to attend.
No worries.
just to begin with, I do apologize. It was my intention to have my son Jacob, who is currently a grade 9 student at St. Luke's on our campus, join with me tonight, but we're past bedtime at this point, so it'll just be me now. First of all, I want to thank the council once again for allowing us to meet with you again. And to give you an update in terms of what we've been able to do in the last 10 months since the last time we met. The primary one is our, as you probably are aware, our website at ruralfasd.ca, of which you guys were so graciously one of the sponsors for us to be able to accomplish that, is now live and is able to be viewed by the public. And I'll be speaking to that more in a minute. Next slide. So very quickly, again, just in terms of background, we are a nonprofit corporation formed in 2019, and our entire membership consists solely of people with lived experience related to FASD. And so that means people who have been diagnosed or suspected to have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and their primary caregivers. We have now increased to 156 families and 184 children, including now 14 families from the municipality of North Grenville. We're one of the few, I suspect, organizations who will tell you that we've actually seen marked increase due to COVID. And obviously it's due to need for services. This represents a 60% increase from last year in terms of population. Unfortunately, FASD is still considered to be an ineligible disability from a community living or developmental service standpoint. So we continue to kind of exist on our own. And once again, research still shows that 90% of children with FASD will have mental health challenges, and 75% of their caregivers will have a mental health breakdown at some point. We have seen increase on that over the past year, as I'm sure you can understand why. One accomplishment we were able to accomplish, though, through our Bell Let's Talk grant, which is in partnership with Children's Mental Health of Leeds Grenville. We were able to pay for 2 youth from North Grenville to receive private counseling. Through your communication streams, we actually got connected with 2 more psychotherapists in the municipality of North Grenville that we were able to connect those people with. And we're seeing excellent progress being made over the last 6 months as due to that. The other thing we were able to do was we were also able to certify 6 North Grenville caregivers as community mental health first aiders. And this is mental health first aid is really designed for community individuals to recognize when someone's having a mental health crisis. They come alongside of them and walk with them as they go to whatever referral location is best suited for what their needs are. Next slide. Our objectives, again, match very nicely with the municipality of North Grenville. And the first one is we seek to build a safe, healthy, cohesive community by bringing awareness about the challenges of FASD and connecting families with effective mental health clinicians. We also look to provide collaborative leadership by increasing and promoting our network of community partners and resource sharing. I do want to make one mention right now. Last year, we reached out to 16 different partners in terms of potential funding, and North Grenville was one of 2 that came through for us last year. And I want to really state the impact that you guys had on us this year was humongous. So the last one was we also are looking to encourage sustainable growth by reaching other families who are seeking our help and services. And we're doing that through our website known as our One-Stop Communication Hub. Next slide. So our request at this point, and I will say right at the beginning, I recognize that you folks have some really difficult decisions to make going forward. I am pleased to tell you that in the last week, we have been able to secure additional funding from the Civitan International out of Smith Falls, who is going to help us with the costs related to being able to maintain the website. So what we have seen, we've already been told directly at this point that our expression of interest to the Ontario Trillium Foundation has been accepted, and we are now meeting with an evaluator to be able to submit our application next month. They told us directly that it was due to our website that our expression of interest was accepted. And so again, the funding that you guys gave us last year has directly impacted our ability and our sustainability going forward. We have also been told at this point that our expression of interest with the Ontario Brain Science through their Geek Fund was also due to the website. And so again, having your logo on the website on every page gives us a legitimate partner, and it really states that you guys are willing to stand with us on this. And it makes an impact in terms of even the conversations we're having with other partners going forward. So really the request that we have at this point is there are obviously costs, servers costs, domain costs. There's several widgets and plugins that are associated with the website. With the Civitan's additional funding, they're going to be able to cover most of it. And so we would really, I guess we're looking for is just being able to continue our partnership and collaboration going forward. Whatever that amount might look like would be perfectly fine for us. We would just really, really love to be able to continue having your logo on the website moving forward. We would obviously be able to tell the impact that it's having through whatever other funding we're able to secure at this point, as well as we obviously can track the number of hits and number of shares for website analytics. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much. It's so great to hear that I think what was a modest investment has been the catalyst for, I think, some impactful opportunities for your group going forward. I can see Councillor O'Sullivan has her hand up. Before I go there, you spoke of better connections to some of our local mental health providers, as well as those mental health first aid responders. So are they available to families that are struggling with FASD in particular, or are they more widely available? Could you just explain a little bit about the role that they play in North Grenville?
So the mental health first aiders, the way the model is set up is while they're caregivers who are obviously looking after their own children and looking after their own families and so on. What they're really designed for is it's through the one-on-one connections. And so if they recognize someone within their family, or if they recognize someone within whatever community group that they are associated with, it's really dependent on having that strong personal connection rather than more so I would describe it as a professional relationship. And so they are, the individuals are living within the community, and so they are when they see people within the municipality who they believe are struggling with mental health, they know who the person to go talk to. They know what the agency is, and they really encourage that they walk with that person to them. The challenge that I have is there's obviously a lot of privacy issues that go along with those personal connections. So, but certainly, like I said, the training and the individuals, it was done through the Children's Mental Health of Leith Grenville and the Bell Let's Talk Fund.
Okay. And my other quick question before I go to Councillor Sullivan is, are there comparable organizations? I was just looking at your presentation across Ontario. Are you the only rural network of its kind across Ontario? I'm sort of gathering that from what, yes.
We are. And
Okay.
in fact, some of the conversations that we're having right now, we just got told a couple months ago, one of our youth has just been named a federal accessibility leader. at the federal level. We're in the process of actually beginning I'm going to call it an educational video series. We're just waiting to hear from the federal government whether we're going to receive the funding for that to move forward. But it's really what it's happening, what it's about is there's an understanding now that accessibility is just living in a rural and remote area alone creates accessibility issues. Having mental health challenges creates accessibility issues to be able to access services. And so that's really, yes, that is our niche. We are strictly that representing that rural and remote voices, particularly related to FASD, but it's branching into other areas. We're also in contact with Canadian Centre for Substance Abuse and Addiction right now, because we have, in fact, we were told by Trillium, we're currently the largest organization in Ontario consisting solely of lived experience. That everybody that's associated with us we're living it. This is, we are the hands and feet.
Okay, very powerful. Thank you. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you very much for that presentation and your request. I think that going forward, and given the stats that we know about the increased use of alcohol during the pandemic, I mean, it's very evident that it's been an increase. And so I think this is something that going forward may continue to be a need. And I just wanted to clarify, do you have supports for people who have not just FASD, but other substance exposure during pregnancies that will lead to the same kind of situation that they're in? Because the physical indications of someone who has FASD are not always evident. And I'm not sure if the physical indications are the same with someone who has maybe a cannabis exposure or any other street drug exposure during pregnancy.
Yeah, and you raised some really great points, and I'm going to take a couple of minutes more of your time here, if you don't mind. The first one is we know that the two leading indicators as to what FASD prevalence is based on percentage of binge drinking amongst adults 18 to 35, as well as pregnancy rate. And during COVID, it's a 20% increase on binge drinking among that age group over the past 18 months. And we've also seen a 7% birth rate increase within the counties of Lanark and Leeds Grenville. I will tell you right now, when the diagnosis doesn't normally happen until age 5 at the very earliest, prevalency rate is going to be higher in 5 years. There's absolutely no doubt about it whatsoever. In terms of some of those other things, the one that I wanted to make mention of very quickly, the big task that we're working on right now, we've been able to partner with Carleton University, and we currently have a BSW, fourth year BSW student that's interning with us right now. She's in the process of conducting an environmental scan of all FASD informed services within the counties of both Lanark and Leeds Grenville. We have identified in 12 sectors, including education, mental health, health in general, community engagement. Anyways, there's 12 sectors in total. We have identified there's 70 organizations in the 2 counties that fall under one of those 12 sectors. She's been able to interview 27 of them so far. We are going to be publishing a report in May regarding all the services and where they're located and how to contact them. And it's going to serve as a handbook for basically every support organization in the 2 counties. And absolutely being able to access substance abuse and addiction services is one of the 12 that we are working in close collaboration with, because there is very much a link between them.
Okay, thank you. Because I know that, I mean, you see all the posters in bars about alcohol consumption during pregnancy, et cetera, but I do have a concern about the amount of maybe cannabis or any other street drugs that are used during pregnancy, and the same effect on the children that result from that pregnancy. So like cocaine or whatever.
The one thing that I would say is any other substance is not a teratogen, which basically means it doesn't pass through the placenta and the bloodstream. That's where alcohol is different from everything else. So the alcohol drink directly impacts the brain development of the child, whereas anything else doesn't have. It's a different impact. It definitely impacts, but it is a different impact in that sense.
Nicotine crosses the placenta.
Yes. Oh, you're absolutely right. And it's very, yeah, and you're absolutely right. Very similar effects as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much. Thanks for the work you do.
You're welcome.
So I guess I don't see other hands. So I understand that there's value in continuing a collaboration, and perhaps there's a way for you offline to quantify a small financial contribution that would allow us to sustain that partnership and allow you, more importantly, to leverage, right, our commitment and our investment into something, I think, much more sizable for your future needs. So I think council remains very open to that. And it's really actually quite lovely to hear about how a small amount has really allowed you to grow and I think ultimately thrive as an organization. So that's incredibly valuable feedback. Thank you very much.
The last one that I'll just mention is it is our intention to have our annual summer event where we all gather together. You guys will receive an invite again. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it work this year, but we would love to have you come and meet the kids for sure.
That'd be great. Thanks so much, Mr. Morris. So someone will just follow up with you after the fact. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, take care. Okay. So I think we are on to the last presentation, and we're hearing from Mary Lynn Villeneuve from the Volunteer Center. Mary Lynn, are you still with us, Ms. Villeneuve? Okay, yes, right to the bitter end, eh? And I saw you in the beginning, so you've been patient.
That's okay. So good evening, Your Worship, and members of council, staff, and guests. So thank you for the opportunity to be able to present here this evening on behalf of the Volunteer Center of St. Lawrence Rideau. And actually, I do have to say it is a privilege to go last, because it's been wonderful to sit here and listen to all of the presentations. It's been a very informative evening, so thank you. My name is Mary Lynn Villeneuve, and I am the manager of the Volunteer Center. So next slide, please. So waving goodbye to 2021 and welcoming 2022 doesn't mean we can just forget the past. We've already seen the repercussions of the last 20 months and what is still to come. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced so many nonprofit agencies, services, and businesses to pivot in unexpected ways, but it also provided an opportunity for us to improve, to refocus, and to be creative. We have, next slide. We have an incredible team here at the Volunteer Center with volunteers and staff who are always looking at initiatives as part of building a culture that continues to enrich lives and put people first. We are focused on volunteer engagement and the vital role of volunteers in the social and economic well-being for the residents of our region. Next slide. For 40 years, the Volunteer Center has developed strategic partnerships with multiple organizations here in our region, and many of these agencies provide wraparound programs and services to all of our communities. And we are looking forward to continued growth for this region in 2022 and beyond as we forge new relationships in the North Grenville area. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at some of the programs that we do here at the Volunteer Center. The best one that we are known for is our Community Volunteer Income Tax Program, which is in its 37th year. We provide free income tax filing for low-income filers. We have 5 locations throughout tax season, including a drop-off location in Kemptville, and we offer year-round service through our Brockville office. We have 24 trained volunteers, including 1 or 2 that we dedicate to the Kemptville area, that complete 2,600 to 3,000 tax returns annually. This spring, in collaboration with the Tamarack Institute, we did a case study to better understand the impact of the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program. We estimate that our program returns 24 million, yes, that's $24 million, back into the pockets of our most vulnerable residents through refunds, benefits, and transfer payments. We see about $500,000 going to residents who access our services through the Kemptville location. Only 24% of eligible Canadians access this vital service, so we see a great opportunity for this program to grow throughout North Grenville. The CVITP has been identified as an important strategy for poverty reduction, not just here, but across Canada. Next slide, please. So building on the success of our tax program, in 2020, we introduced our strategic financial literacy program focused on helping people gain more confidence and knowledge with financial matters such as banking, credit, savings, debt, budgeting. Our free workshops are delivered by trained volunteers leveraging the work of Prosper Canada. To date, we have delivered 41 adult workshops to approximately 194 participants. And then in June, we conducted a focus group with an area teacher and some students, which helped launch our youth financial workshops, and we haven't looked back. Our youth ages 14 to 21 participate in 3 90-minute workshop series. They're done virtually, and they help them to navigate financial information and resources that can help them to contribute to their own financial well-being in the future. We've completed 17 workshops with approximately 8 to 10 youth attending each series. They're developed outside of school hours, so our students also have the opportunity to gain 10 community volunteer hours for their participation. So by mobilizing volunteer role models, mentors, and collaborating with community partners such as Connect Youth, the Youth Job Connections at EEC, the YJC program, South Grenville Food Bank, CSE in Kemptville, we can deliver our workshops in safe, non-judgmental environments. And again, this is a program we can see growing as we move forward. Next slide, please. Along with our services, our financial program and community volunteers, our volunteers have assisted in so many ways through grocery and essential item delivery, food banks, social distancing shelters, vaccination and screening clinics. And each year we take the opportunity to recognize the contributions of our volunteers through our Community Caring Awards, which is coming up on December 5th. So if anybody would like a nomination form, they can certainly reach out to me. Next slide, please. We have formal associations with organizations such as the Volunteer Canada, the Ontario Volunteer Centre Network, the Tamarack Institute. All of these organizations help to enhance our skills and our profile in the community. We participate in many community and national roundtables, and this year I was invited to participate as a stakeholder on behalf of the Volunteer Centre with the FCAC, the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. Their theme this year is Make Change That Counts, and I'm participating on their national literacy strategy for 2021 through to 2026. Next slide, please. We provide workshops and training for our nonprofit agencies, and we've done workshops such as Turf Trust and Collaboration, Excellence in Board Governance, Social Media 101, just to name a few. On November the 1st, we launched a national partnership with Volunteer Calgary to be one of the first volunteer centers in Ontario to launch their new digital volunteer program on our website. And it's to help support our agencies and our volunteers in Leeds and Granville to have more access to volunteer opportunities in our region. Next slide, please. So the Volunteer Center operates entirely on fundraising, grant requests, memberships, donations, and sponsorships. Volunteers have been the essential driver in the response to the pandemic, and they will continue to be essential for our recovery. And we must work collectively to support the work of the Volunteer Center and the engagement of volunteers. We are committed to enhancing and improving low-income and at-risk community members lives through financial well-being, along with participation and contribution to society through volunteerism and our Center of Excellence. Next slide, please. It's important to understand the programs and services of the Volunteer Center are available to all residents of Leeds and Granville, no matter where they reside. We are asking all municipalities to support and promote the important and valuable work we do. And with the support of the municipality of North Grenville, we can look forward to continued growth for 2022 and beyond, and increase our volunteers, our tax preparers, and our workshop facilitators for your region. Together, we can do this through volunteerism. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I just have a couple of questions before going to colleagues, and colleagues, just put up your hands. You talk about the partnership with CSE, which is great. So exciting.
Yeah.
Very happy to see that. Why is it just a drop off for the tax return assistance?
So,
I ask only because I can imagine how challenging it is for people to come to terms with maybe not having filed taxes for 5-7 years. There's a lot of other complexity to people's lives, right? When they don't file taxes repeatedly year after year, or perhaps marginalization. So I'm just curious about how that program has been working.
Yeah, so we've always done our tax program in person. So folks would come in, and we have face-to-face consultations. When COVID hit, all the CDI-TP programs shut down. Many of them did not reopen. And we pulled our team together. We have 24 volunteers. Many of them have been with us 15, 20 years. And we said, what do we do? How can we make this work to keep this going? And so we came up with the idea of drop-off locations with community partners. And we have a file by phone service. So we presented this to Canada Revenue Agency, and they loved it. So we were part of the model for how Canada Revenue Agency moved forward through the pandemic to be able to continue to do tax filing. So currently the drop-off location from last year and this year was Kemptville at CSE. Our goal is to see that expand, because as you can see by the numbers, we're just scratching the surface for Kemptville, for North Grenville area. So we need to increase that. We know the potential's there to increase it by having additional drop-off locations. And we hope that eventually in the next year, it won't happen for 2022, but 2023, we can get back to the in-person appointments and everything.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up. What are people dropping off, right? Tax forms are quite
So you're dropping off, you're dropping off your T4s, your T5s, you're dropping off so whatever you would take if you were going into a tax preparer.
Oh, I see. So they're not preparing the documents, they're just giving you guys whatever information is required to complete the forms. And
Correct.
Do you have contact with these clients? So they call, how do they make, so you're a resident in North Grenville. I understand you have the center in Brockville, but so you call to get advice on what needs to be submitted, and then you drop that off at a Kemptville location?
So you can. I mean, most clients that are accessing our program are low-income filers. So they generally just have T5s. They might have or T4, and they have rent receipts. They might have, very simple file. So they can, we have an intake form. So CSE has our intake form, which is information about them and then questions that need to be asked to file. And so everything goes into an envelope, it's sealed CSE. Then we have volunteers who pick up the files and they complete the taxes online.
Okay.
Same with the phone service. So people can just actually call in and the volunteer will actually walk you through the process right over the phone and everything's filed electronically. And you talk about people that, you know, a couple of years of taxes to file. We just completed one for somebody who had 18 years of filing. So they need to know just because they're a few years behind, don't not file.
Okay, one other question and then I'll go to colleagues. I know we're at the end of the evening, but this is a fascinating subject matter. Because of deficient rural broadband, some people don't pay for internet, right? If it's too much, we're talking about a low income clientele. So those financial literacy services, which obviously for all kinds of reasons were delivered through Zoom. Have you guys gotten your head around what to do if someone doesn't have good broadband and they may not in a rural area, and how they participate in those classes?
Yeah, so we originally did start off in person and our very first workshop was delivered at CSE in Kemptville.
Okay.
So we do reach out to community partners to provide us with space. When COVID happened, then we had to pivot to doing the virtual. We've done a couple in person again. And so that's, we'll continue to do a mix. We're finding that with the youth part, they're more receptive to doing it virtually. If they can, but again, once we can get back into space, we can deliver both. We have both opportunities, in person and virtual.
Okay, thank you. I'll recognize Councillor Barclay and Councillor Sullivan. Go ahead, Councillor Barclay.
Two quick questions. Thank you, Mary Lynn, for the presentation. The first question is regarding the request for $3,000. What exactly will that get us in terms of sort of increasing your services here in North Grenville?
Yep. Sorry. No,
that's the first question.
Yeah, go ahead. The second one?
Second one, sorry. I noticed that you have funding from the Brockville Area Community Foundation, and I know the North Grenville Community Fund is hopefully working their way towards becoming a foundation itself. What kind of funding do you get from the Brockville and Area Community Foundation?
Okay, so with the first question was, sorry, just repeat that again.
What exactly $3,000 will get us in terms of increased presence here?
So we are in 2021, and again for 2022, our primary fundraising event, which is Dancing Stars of Leeds Grenville, we were not able to do. So we're reaching out. We're very, very proactive in writing grants. I'm grant crazy right now, and reaching out to community partners. And we are reaching out to all municipalities and townships requesting funding to support our core program of everything that we do. So the tax program, the financial literacy program, and the core operations for volunteers for the network, for the volunteer center. So we're, like I say, we're very proactive in writing the grants. So we look at it that when you can go to writing a grant and say, we have all municipalities and townships support and promote the programs and services of the volunteer center, it gives us credibility when we're asking for these grants. Community Foundations was involved. We received funding. We're a member agency from the United Way of Leeds Grenville. Community Foundations of Brockville was involved in our initial grant through the federal government for launching our financial literacy program back in 2020. So it was a combination of Community Foundations and United Way and the Government of Canada that we received a $68,000 grant to launch our program.
Thank you. Thank you for those answers. So in other words, you're looking for, because of COVID and the lack of opportunities there, you're looking for buy-in from all the municipalities in order to leverage more funding.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan, please.
Thank you. I actually thought I had my question answered, but now I'm not so sure. So I just wanted to clarify, are you doing these training sessions, are they for the volunteers who are going to provide the services?
So we train the volunteers as workshop facilitators.
Okay.
And we leverage the work of Prosper Canada. So we provide all of the training through Prosper Canada. And then the volunteers deliver the workshops to our general public. So they're open to anybody. And we focus on adult workshops and youth workshops.
Okay, so these workshops, sorry did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
So these workshops are designed then to enable and empower people to do their own tax returns going forward?
No. So the tax program is totally separate from our financial literacy program.
Okay.
Our tax program, we've been operating for 37 years.
Okay.
And we have volunteers who are trained through Canada Revenue Agency to complete taxes for low income. So an individual would have to have an income of $35,000 or less. A couple would be $45,000 or less. That's one program. Okay. Then that spurred our financial literacy program because we were looking at, we see people getting tax returns, getting refunds. How are we helping them even further when they're getting this money rather than just say, close the door and watch them walk away? How can we help them better with the finances? And that spurred on the financial literacy program.
Okay, so have you got any or plan to have any programs that will help people, teach people to do their own tax returns, particularly if they are very simple tax returns? They don't have a ton of investments, etc. So it's a pretty simple tax return. Do you teach people to do their own?
We don't, no.
Has there any consideration for doing that? It kind of empowers the people to take care of their own tax returns. And
it's honestly, it's not something we've looked at, but possibly it is something we can look at going forward. Our program is supported by Canada Revenue Agency. It's completely regulated by Canada Revenue Agency. I believe that there has been discussion by the federal government about making tax filing easier for people to be able to do their own. But again, there will always be like 24% of the population is accessing this program. You know, so there's still a large population that will always need assistance to complete them.
Right. No, I get that. But if you could have a program that would help people to, just similar to the financial literacy program where you're helping them navigate their own finances, you could help them to also navigate their own tax returns, particularly if they're simple.
Yeah. So when we do the financial literacy program, we actually do talk about doing income taxes. We don't sit there and walk them through all of these steps, but we do tell them, you know, here's what you need to prepare for doing your taxes. Then if you need assistance, if you qualify under our program, we can help you, or at least you know this is the information you need to gather to start your taxes. And of course, the importance of doing them.
Right, of course. Yeah. The importance of doing them, but what, especially if it's simple, it's simple.
Yeah, it's simple, except depending on people's literacy capacity, mental health, right? Stability issues. Actually, I'm not sure it's so simple. I think it depends on where that person may be in their life. But you're absolutely right. Objectively, it's simple. But I have a feeling certain individuals do benefit from some assistance, if nothing more than you just walk through the form with someone. So,
and I agree with that. It's pretty daunting and it's a little overwhelming at first when you see all the different forms you need to do. And once you understand it, though, and someone walks you through it, if it's a simple tax return, it probably would maybe give them a sense of empowerment and a little more autonomy. So,
Mary Lynn, some food for thought, clearly. There you go. Okay.
You can work your way out of a job and you can free up volunteers to do all kinds of other things. There's never a shortage of work for volunteers.
I was going to say that. I mean, when you listen to all of the presentations tonight, we know that everybody here, their life has been touched by a volunteer, and every organization that comes forward in some way is impacted by volunteers. And we heard that here tonight. So, you know,
I'd love to throw a little plug in for the international plowing match in North Grenville next year, because I'm coordinating volunteer.
Call me. And just like I said, it's been a privilege to just sit here and listen to all of these organizations, because I hear the opportunity for growth. We partnered this year helping Ferguson Forest Center for the first time, helping them with their volunteers. So we have other organizations, and the growth, the potential for growth in North Grenville is incredible. And we were on that track in 2018, 2019. We actually had a presence in North Grenville at the municipal offices for one day a month, and then COVID hit. So we're ready to jump back in and start building the volunteer center and the presence in North Grenville.
Well, we have the challenge of the century. We're hosting
Yes, you do.
the largest event that North Grenville has ever seen, and it's, I don't know, 230 years or whatever it may be. So Ms. Villeneuve, I think you've just made a friend in Councillor O'Sullivan. She's going to be calling you very soon. Very soon.
Absolutely. We've done the Special Olympics in this region.
Beautiful.
Yes. So we've got the experience behind us. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Councillor Sullivan.
We need someone to go fertilize the money tree.
All right. It sounds like another conversation is warranted there.
Yeah.
And I see no other questions from council colleagues. I know it's getting late, so as much as we may want to continue down this path, best done offline. Thank you very much. I think you've answered our questions, and we appreciate your interest in this area. We're very proud of, I think, what is a tremendous commitment to volunteerism. That being said, equipping, training, fostering, new generations of volunteers, those are all big challenges. So we appreciate that you're ambitious and innovative in what you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Right. You take care. Councillor Sullivan will be calling you.
I'm looking forward to it. Good night, everyone.
Take care. Okay. So council colleagues, that brings us to the end of our presentations this evening. We have another session tomorrow night where we do it all again. I have just one motion on the table before we can adjourn, and that is that council receives the community grant requests as presented, and I'll look for a mover and a seconder, please, for that. Councillor Barkley, Councillor Sullivan, thank you very much. I'll call the question. All in favor, please. Good. Thank you. Thank you to all the staff who joined us this evening. Appreciate you listening in. I think you get a good sense of where people are coming from in our community as well through these presentations. Just a confirmation bylaw as recommended by Ms. Babcock Cormier. And I'll look to Deputy Mayor and a seconder, please. Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. And that is that bylaw 11721 to confirm the proceedings of council at its special meeting held on November 23rd be adopted as passed. I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. Thank you. And now I'll look to Deputy Mayor and Councillor Barkley for a motion to adjourn at 9:16 p.m. Motion to adjourn, colleagues. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. And we'll see you here tomorrow evening, 6:30 p.m. sharp for round 2. Thanks a lot. Take care. Meeting's adjourned. Bye.
I may not get there tomorrow night because I have an IPM directors meeting, so I will.
Understood.
Okay.
We'll keep it entertaining and you can watch after the fact.
Or can you please stop streaming and